quarterbacks went everywhere. Jason played quarterback, evaluated the quarterback position, head coach, offensive coordinator, surrounded by these quarterbacks. So we thought it'd be interesting to jump into all quarterbacks, excluding Caleb Williams. There's obviously a ton about Caleb Williams, but the start, Jayden Daniels, number 2 pick, all of the conversation was, who's going to go number 2? Is it going to be Jayden Daniels? Is it going to be Drake Maye? Seemed like at the end, as we got closer to Thursday night for the draft, it was Jayden Daniels. And now he goes, new head coach in Quinn, new offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury. How do you put a plan together for guys like this? He's dynamic. He can do a lot of different things that we saw in college. But how do you plan for this in the NFL for a guy like Jayden Daniels?
You know, it's a great question. You know, you and I have talked. I was so impressed with Jayden Daniels when I watched the tape. And obviously he wins the Heisman Trophy. And I had seen highlights and was impressed by what I had seen. But when you dive into it, he was a much more mature player than I thought he was going to be. And it probably has a lot to do with the fact that he's played a lot of football. I think his biggest step over the last couple of years was the ability to use his legs maybe in a more timely manner and otherwise go through his progressions, read the defense. That triggers a progression. It says go 1, 2, 3. And you saw him go through those progressions, find check downs, go the right place with the ball and coverage. So I say that to say this, that I feel like he's pretty advanced. Well coached. Mike Denbrock, who's now the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame, had him the last couple of years at LSU, and really, I think helped him a lot in his development, understanding how to play the game at the next level. So you take the player with the number 2 pick. It's hard not to play him, particularly given the other guys on the roster. They signed Marcus Mariota, but I still think that they want to play Jayden Daniels. Marcus can be a placeholder if things aren't going well in training camp and in the preseason, but I think they want to get him out there as quickly as they can. The experience that we had with Dak Prescott in Dallas, his rookie year, Tony Romo had gotten hurt, and Dak came in as the 3rd quarterback. Kellen Moore gets hurt. He's the backup. Tony gets hurt, and now all of a sudden our 4th-round pick is our starting quarterback. And I thought Scott Linehan, our offensive coordinator, did a fantastic job growing and evolving over the course of the year. Oftentimes when you have a veteran quarterback, the guy you played with for years, you can put the whole thing on him right at the start. And, you know, in minicamp, there's so much information they're getting. You're working all the different situations. And I thought Scott did a really good job pulling back, giving Dak stuff he was comfortable with, stuff he had done in college, and then we grew and we evolved over the course of the year. And that's not easy to do. It's not easy to evaluate it week by week and say, okay, he's ready for more. Let's maybe get a little more of this going. Remember, he did this in college. We haven't done that, but let's maybe do a little of that. And I thought Scott Linehan did a great job of that. And that's going to be important for Cliff Kingsbury to do the same kind of thing. Even though he's played a lot of ball and at the highest level, wins the Heisman Trophy, it's still a transition from college football to pro football at any position, particularly quarterback. So I think they'll play him, and I think how they evolve over the course of the year will be really critical for them. And I think Cliff and Dan will do a great job of that.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. Bill Belichick on the Pat McAfee show that night, he said, all of these guys, they have to develop, they have to get better because they're going from college to the NFL. It's not like for certain guys, because you get drafted high, it just clicks. And I think one of the points that you made is Cliff Kingsbury. I think when we look back, and I think one of the hardest things for coaches in the NFL is no matter what success you have, people try to only remember the end when it wasn't going well and you got fired, and that's how they only try to remember you. But as you look back, he had a rookie, Kyler Murray, come in, and Kyler Murray finished that year 3,700 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, offensive rookie of the year. And you look at that, a dynamic guy who can run, playmaker, but a coach who understood, I have a rookie quarterback. I need to make sure this offense tailors to his strengths, to where he's comfortable. And I think Cliff Kingsbury You go back to 2019 with Kyler Murray, he's familiar with that. He understands the landscape of being in the NFL, but also being in college, where he had Patrick Mahomes and he had Johnny Manziel. He had all these different people and quarterbacks who had different personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses. So even though this is a new team, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new owner, I think they have a guy like Cliff Kingsbury who's familiar with how to get this done and how to get Jayden Daniels to play at a high level, not to mention he's going to be throwing to Jahan Dotson. He's going to be throwing to scary Terry McLaurin. He's going to throw to Logan Thomas in the middle at tight end. It's not like this team is just depleted of talented receivers and weapons. They do have some weapons out there. So I think Jayden Daniels is going to have a chance to have a good rookie year. I think Washington is going to play in a division where the feeling is the Cowboys haven't done a ton. They're still going to be really good. Philadelphia seems like they always do a good job in the offseason. Free agency seems like they did another good job in the draft. And then also with the Giants. So they're still going to have to battle in that NFC East. But I think for Jayden Daniels, if I'm him, I feel pretty good. And I know there was doubts if he wanted to go to Washington at first, but he should feel pretty confident in the plan that they can have for him going forward. Whereas I think, like, you look at the next team, you look at Drake Maye in New England, and you just said what Linehan did. I watched our team and that offense, even before I got there, of how it just, and they used to talk about it, how it just morphed and morphed and morphed into just more and more and more because of a guy like Brady. And I used to talk to Josh McDaniels, and he said, the hardest part of my job is not watching film and game plan. And he said, it's having answers for Tom. He said, because Tom comes in on Wednesday and he wants to know, all right, what are we going to do when this happens? What are you going to do when they run this defense? He's already watched so much film that he's now asking me all of these things. And he said, I'm looking at him like it's only Wednesday. We don't have every answer to every question on the test. And then you get a rookie quarterback. And I watch Mac Jones have to be in that building sometimes till 10 p.m. because of the amount of stuff that they were trying to do and they were putting on him. But I also watched a kid who could do it. And his rookie year, yes, he was draining a lot. It was tough for him, but I think he wanted it to be that way because he wanted success. He wanted to figure out how to be successful. So to watch that and to watch how hard it was to get a quarterback caught up to what a guy who had been there before him done for 20 years was was impossible. But to see him get better each and every week because of the work he was putting in, I think showed that. I think it's going to be interesting now for Drake Maye because he's going to New England in that same type of background that's chasing him, that's always going to be in the shadows. But this is brand new. You know, Alex Van Pelt is in there. He's going to have a new time. He's going to have to adjust. But they also have a guy in Jacoby Brissett who Van Pelt had in Cleveland when Deshaun Watson was out and suspended, and Jacoby took all the snaps as a starting quarterback. So I think that relationship is going to help Drake Maye, what they did together when they first got together in Cleveland, how they kind of game plan and what they did. And I think at the end of the day, I think you're the third pick in the draft. People are going to want to see you out there. But I think they could have a little bit of delay and say, hey, let's let Jacoby go out there. Let's figure some things out elsewhere in this offense too, not just at the quarterback. Who are going to be our receivers? Who's going to be our starting left tackle? Like, let's figure those things out before we send Drake out there to have to deal with it. And that's what I'm looking forward to see. What exact decision game plan wise does New England go with?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to think about and work your way through. You know, one thing that I think Drake has, that Jayden Daniels has, that Cliff Kingsbury will be able to use as well down in Washington, is they have an ability to run. And so if you're a straight pocket passer, which there are probably fewer and fewer of those coming out of college these days, just because the game has changed. But when you're a straight pocket passer, and that's the only ball that you're playing, sometimes it's like, boy, this is the NFL. It's complicated. There's a lot of cover stuff they can do to you that you haven't seen before, all of that. When you're a guy who has movement skills like Jayden Daniels has in Washington and Drake Maye has in New England, it's a little bit like, hey, we can play this guy and we can run zone read type stuff. And that's what he did at North Carolina. That's what he did at LSU. And that's what he did wherever they came from. And so that transition thing goes away. You know, oftentimes the guy coming out of college knows it better than the NFL guys, if you will. I can remember with Dak, his rookie year, we're putting some option play in from the gun. And, we were talking about the timing, and we had studied it as coaches, and he was going to do this, and this was the aiming point. And Dad kind of looked at us like, Coach, I've been doing this since 7th grade. I got this. And he kind of turned around and was teaching us how to do it. We're like, yeah, just do that. And so there's a little bit of that with these guys coming out. And I think Jayden and Drake both have that. And that can give them a chance to play earlier and have success. Now, do you want to keep them out of those heavy drop back situations, those third down situations where they're coming from everywhere and you have no idea what the coverage is because it looks like this and then it changes to this? You want to minimize those situations as much as you can, and you can do that with both of them because of their legs. Having said that, the fact that they have a guy like Jacoby Brissett and all the issues that you talked about with the offensive line, receiver issues, you want to be careful here. You want to make sure that we're not in such a hurry to get these guys out there on minute one that we lose them. We lose the best of them. And the best example, obviously, is Patrick Mahomes getting drafted high, and then he sits and he watches Alex Smith. That was a deliberate decision. We're not going to let you play this year, and you're going to watch this guy do it. And I'm sure he was chomping at the bit. I'm sure in practice he was wowing them with these throws. Guys are looking at each other like, hey, I love Alex, but this guy's ridiculous. They were disciplined to that approach. Does every team need to take that approach? No, but there's a good lesson there. And so having some patience, taking a breath, making sure you have a capable guy like Brissett to do it until he's ready to go. I think that's a good approach. They're never going to be ready. You're never ready for that opportunity. It's always going to be a learning experience. There's going to be some risk. There's going to be some pain and suffering. That's part of the deal. And hopefully you've drafted a guy who has mental toughness to fight his way through that. But you don't want to overdo it. You want to set up a situation where you feel like you can have some success early, build on some confidence. So I think those are the questions they have to answer. How quickly is he picking it up? By all accounts, he's a really smart guy. He's a football junkie. That shouldn't be an issue. Is he ready to transition? He hasn't played as much football as Jayden Daniels has. So his transition might be a little slower. Maybe it's play Brissett. Maybe when you play Drake Maye early on, you use his legs a little bit more as he's growing and developing as a pocket passer. But taking a breath, taking the long view of it, I think is important.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. You say they're never ready. That's like when you have a baby. You can practice, you could get a dog. You're never ready when that baby comes. But moving on to Atlanta is where everybody was on Twitter or X saying the draft has started now because Atlanta, they get their pick and everyone's thinking corner, outside pass rusher, and they draft Michael Penix Jr. And I'm not going to lie, when I saw it, I was like, Michael Penix Jr., like that's a lot invested in your quarterback room. And I thought the biggest thing was from a player standpoint. When you're on a team, and I'll never forget, I think that's why New England was so unique that they overcame so many different things. I'll never forget in 2014, we're sitting there in the second round and we draft Jimmy Garoppolo. And it was like, really? We drafted a quarterback in the second round? And as a player, you're not thinking about the next 5 years because honestly, you don't know if you're going to be there the next 5 years. All you see is what we have right now and what we could have the chance to do during the season. And then you see the mock drafts, what the experts are saying. So you're thinking, okay, this college kid must be pretty good. Let's get him. And that's what I worry about for Atlanta right now. The guys who are there who are like, hey, this is our year. We went and got Kirk Cousins. What was it, a month and a half ago, whatever. Like, this is what we're going to do. And we just add this guy or we just add that guy. Because some guys are really locked in on college football in the draft. And I think now you see Michael Penix Jr. and you're like, wait, we got the number 8 pick in the draft and you guys are thinking about the future. What about right now? How do we go win right now? What's the best way? What could we have given this team to go win? And I have no problem with the front office saying that this is a vision for the future and this is what they're trying to do. I think it's going to be up to Raheem Morris, which you probably can't find a better coach to handle this situation, probably Mike Tomlin, of going in this locker room and making sure guys believe in what they're doing. Guys aren't against it. I think that's what he's going to have to try to feel that out and make sure everybody's on the same page. Guys are always going to play hard. You're getting paid to play. You earn more money by playing hard and making plays. But I still think you want guys connected on the vision because that's how you ultimately win games.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you analyzed it really well there. Let me say this before we get started. I really like Michael Penix. If if you put the tape on, it's like ha ha ha. The ball leaps out of his hand, and I think he has the trait that all the great ones who's ever played that position have. He has instincts in the passing game. He moves his feet in the pocket when he's got people around him. The ball comes out. It's like sa sa. I mean, it's really, really impressive. And, when I watched him and I watched him again and watched him again, I'm like, he's got NFL drop back passing traits. And then, oh, by the way, he ran 4.58 at the combine. I'm like, what? Like, I didn't see that at all, particularly because everybody talking about his age, everybody's talking about the knee injuries, all of that. So there's some baggage with him, an older guy, a guy who's been injured. But when you put the tape on, I'm really impressed with him. And we're talking about a guy who's played a ton of football, who's played in pro-style offenses where he's dropping back, reading coverage, and the ball is coming out on time, accurately. He's ripping it in there. And that's what all the great ones who play well at the next level have. Oftentimes, people miss on quarterbacks because, boy, he's the perfect height. He's got arm length. He can throw it. He looks great in the workout. But that whatever that thing is, that instinct that all the great players at all positions have, you need it more at quarterback. And I think he's got it. Okay, so we start there. We love that part of it. This is pick 8. This is the 8th pick of the draft. So this isn't Brett Favre's in Green Bay. There's 2 great quarterbacks coming out in the draft. It's Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers. San Francisco takes Alex Smith. A couple teams don't take Aaron Rodgers. He slides. And now this quarterback is sliding down the draft, and it's pick 24. They look at each other like, this guy's too good. Our grade is too high. This wasn't the design. We thought he was going to be a top 5 pick. Favre still has some time left, but let's take him. That's not this. This isn't, okay, it slides back. Hey, we trade out of 8. We go back to 18. We get a 2nd round pick. We get a 3rd round pick. We get this, we get that. And he's still staring at us. Okay, let's take him. We like him too much. We have him as a top 5 player. We're still going to get the linebacker, the rusher, the this, the that, with all these picks we've accumulated by sliding back. This is pick 8. We're staring at him and we're taking him. I think most mock drafts would tell you that he was going to be there at 8. So the issue is not Michael Penix. The issue for me is not taking him in the top 10. The issue is 2 months ago, you just signed Kirk Cousins for $180 million, period. So do you try to look at the landscape and project forward and see if you can get guys? Yeah, but that's hard to do. That's why we used to always say they should really put the draft before free agency, but they'll never do that. But it's hard. It's a guessing game. But once you decide we're going to go get Kirk Cousins and pay him all that money, it's hard to turn around and take him with the 8th pick when you have a lot of other needs on your team. Now, let's go back to Raheem Morris. I agree with you. He's got a great way about him. I think he's a natural leader. Anybody who's been around him would say that. But again, this is his 2nd bite at the apple as a head coach, but it's his 1st year. He's trying to establish something. I always thought about the first player you take in your regime is telling. That was something I thought about a lot in 2011 when we took over. Tom Landry's first pick was Bob Lilly, one of the greatest players ever to play, Mr. Cowboy, 1960. Jimmy Johnson's first pick was Troy Aikman in 1989. Those are great picks. So this is gonna give you direction in your organization. We drafted Tyron Smith, and to me, he represented everything we wanted our team to be about. Right? I'm not saying Michael Penix isn't that, but it's an important symbolic pick as well.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, with the 5th pick of the draft, took Joe Alt, Notre Dame. And he told the world that we're going to be tough, physical. We're going to win on the line of scrimmage like we used to do in San Francisco. That's who we're going to be. This becomes trickier. Are quarterbacks valuable? I can't tell you how valuable they are. 6 quarterbacks taken the first 12 picks? Absolutely they are. But when you put it all together, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And you described it well. I hope Raheem is able to kind of manage the whole thing, because they've put themselves into a little bit of a quandary. But I really like Penix. I don't dislike the players. I just kind of dislike them together.
Agree. And I think that's what everybody, as you watch, you're just like, how's this going to work? And I think the real interesting thing is, as Kirk Cousins comes back off the injury as a player, and you see Michael Penix sitting there, and you just said it, the ball pops out of his hand. You're sitting there like, damn. Well, like once he gets out there, what if he looks really good? Should we play him? So I don't know. I see a mess coming, and it's going to be interesting. And as we move on outside of the top 10, you got the Vikings, who everyone, they got to move all the way up to number 3 or number 2. They move up 1 spot, and they go and they get their guy. They get J.J. McCarthy. And I think after the draft, a lot of people felt J.J. McCarthy might be in the best situation out of all the young quarterbacks, strictly because Kevin O'Connell last year, when Kirk Cousins got hurt, he put in a bunch of different quarterbacks in there, some veterans, some young guys, and he was still able to be in games. He was still able to go out there and have a productive offense. But now you get a guy that you believe in. You get J.J. McCarthy, and you still have Sam Darnold over there, a veteran that you brought in from San Francisco. But you put Kevin O'Connell's mentality, his game plan, and everything he brings to the table with Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, with T.J. Hawkinson. It just feels like this Minnesota team has people in positions that they can be successful. They just need J.J. McCarthy to take another step to become a pro, but still kind of do some of the things he did well in college, handing the ball off to Aaron Jones, finding the right guy to throw the ball to. We're not going to ask you to drop back 45 times, 50 times, and go win us a game. We're going to let you build throughout. And I think that's why, even though I think Sam Darnold is a veteran who showed that he can play, and he had all of the tools. We talked about it last time you were on here, of when you go back and evaluate these guys, what tools did they have? What was the situation they were drafted into? It feels like Sam Darnold now over the last couple of years has been in better situations, and we've seen better football. So I think Kevin O'Connell will have to figure that out, how exactly they're going to have these two guys compete and what it looks like once they get to the regular season. But it just feels like the Vikings can stick to the plan they had last year, but just have a guy that they know is going to play, which will help them out a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that Kevin O'Connell's strength is his ability to create a friendly environment for quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins is a really talented drop back passer. He could go into a game and he could throw the ball. He could drop back 35, 40 times in the game and throw it around all these weapons. He was at his best when they were running it. They had a lot of the boot action game, the naked game going, and then mixing in the drop back throughout, attacking a lot of different ways. I think they're going to be a lot heavier with the movement game with J.J. McCarthy. I think it's a little bit like New England, though. I don't think they need to be crazy about, hey, this guy has to be the minute one starter. Sam Darnold's a capable player, and he'll benefit from that friendly environment as well. He's very good on the move. So get the running game going, get the movement game going, make the progression reads easy for him. Hey, throw the flat route, throw the over route, come back to the flat, all those things that are easier for quarterbacks to do rather than dropping back and deciphering all this coverage, handling all the pressure. Kevin O'Connell is going to create a good environment for either one of these guys. The question for me and McCarthy, and you and I have talked about this, in contrast to Michael Penix, who seemed to be, every week he put it on his shoulders. He was dropping back a ton. He was throwing the ball all over the place. It was a very advanced pass offense to me. At Michigan, they ran the ball really well. They played really good defense. They go to Penn State, and J.J. McCarthy is 7 for 8 in the game, and they win. So he hasn't been the guy that's had to put it on his shoulders. Now, credit to him when he had big moments, in the semifinal game, in the final game, when he had to do something, he always seemed to respond, but it was far fewer times during a game that he had to do that. So I do think he's going to have to adjust a lot to that next level at the NFL to be a drop back passer. For me, everything you see on tape you like, you just don't see that much of it.
Enough.
So I think he'll benefit from the movement game. He'll grow as a drop back passer. Having Darnold there and Kevin O'Connell there, I think will help him.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I think they're a team, Minnesota, because now you move up one spot, you get McCarthy, and I know we're talking quarterbacks, but then they get the guy that a lot of people mocked Atlanta to get, Dallas Turner, who gives another edge rusher to Brian Flores in that defense. So I think it's great when these quarterbacks can develop and win. I think it creates a confidence, creates an aura about you, and JJ McCarthy's used to winning. So I think that helps him. The next guy, Bo Nix in Denver, I really want to hear your insight because I'm nervous because I don't know. We didn't play against Sean Payton and the Saints a ton when I was in the NFL. I know with Drew Brees, he put up unbelievable numbers. He's known as a great offensive mind, but everything keeps coming back to like Bo Nix can be a guy that drops backs and throws it around like Drew Brees. And I get nervous when I hear that because I'm like Drew Brees, like that's a lot to ask a young guy to do. And now he's following behind Russell Wilson, who is a Super Bowl champion, who's done great things in the league as well. And he wasn't good enough. So I'm sitting here like, man, like what do you think is going to be expectation and the plan for Bo Nix in Denver?
Well, let's pull back a little bit on this. If you remember the start of Drew Brees' career, high second round pick, fantastic college player, but he had issues in San Diego, right? I mean, he was struggling. Eventually he gets hurt, but they had already drafted Phillip Rivers.
Yep.
And so he's in about year 4 when he goes to New Orleans. Now everybody loved Drew Brees coming out, and everybody was very high on his potential as a quarterback in this league. But he struggled. It was not an easy situation. Sean was adamant, this is my kind of guy. I want this guy to be my quarterback there. I want surgeons. I want guys who are smart, in the ball, all that stuff. He proceeds to throw for 80,000 yards in the NFL. So he's an incredible player. So to suggest that anybody is going to be that, I think it's unfair to everybody involved. I played for Sean for 3 years and know him really well. He too does a fantastic job creating a quarterback-friendly environment. He's going to challenge you. He's going to push you as a drop back passer. He's going to help you with movements and quicks and those kinds of things, but we're going to throw the ball down the field. We're going to attack the defense. You're going to read coverage. That's part of what he does. And so he doesn't want to dumb it down. He wants a guy who's capable of hanging in there with him mentally. Now, when you watch Bo Nix at Oregon, incredibly efficient, on time, accurate, move the ball, read the coverage, saw him do a lot of things, ability to move in the pocket, saw him progress, get the ball out quickly. If I don't like my first one, I get all the way to my check down. There's evidence of that all over the tape. There's playmaking ability with his arm and with his feet, but there's also not a lot of mistakes. So we played at a high level. I can see why Sean really liked him. The biggest macro thing for me is 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 12. Unprecedented. Are these guys really an elite quarterback group? Is this Elway, Marino, Jim Kelly? Is this the 83 class? I don't know. I don't know if it's that. So to me, it's almost a little bit like with head coaches these days. It's easier to pick a guy who hasn't done it before and base your whole thing on, hey, he's got potential. We got hope, instead of having a guy who's got a track record. And so all these quarterbacks are getting chosen really high because this is the next guy. And I try to pull back and say, you and I have talked about this, put him in another draft. Put Bo Nix next to Sam Darnold in that draft that Sam came out. Where is he? Where do you put him? So Sean got the sixth of the six guys that everybody thought was going to go in the first round. Could he have slid back and still gotten him? Maybe. But I think he was like, hey, we need a quarterback. We need a face. This is the kind of guy that I want to work with. Is he going to throw for 80,000 yards? I think that's a hard thing to ask. But does he fit what Sean wants to do? I think he does.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think one of the things that you said that stuck out to me is you think about all of these coaches who get fired and a good amount of them get a second opportunity and what they're able to do with it. And it's always the owner, whoever's in charge of hiring, who overlooks and finally says, all right, this person did this well. Don't let me just look at the negative, the bad, the ending of it. But it is like nowadays, that's like unheard of. Raheem Morris getting a job again was like, I think people expected it and they said he earned it and he deserved it. But it was like, well, there's all these other candidates, right? There's the Bobby Slowicks, there's the Shane Waldrons, there's all these offensive minds that you need to get who are young, who haven't coached. So I'm saying it first. Jason Garrett, if you want to coach, let's get Jason Garrett back in this NFL coaching. And I think it's going to some of these guys that know, for one, some of the things they expect. Like the way you just described plans for these quarterbacks, I think so many people are looking at Sean Payton and what Denver's going to do and forgetting what you just said. Phillip Rivers comes into San Diego. Drew Brees is on his way out, ends up in New Orleans with Sean Payton. Success happens. There's a beautiful marriage, 80,000 yards, a ton of touchdowns, NFC championships, Super Bowl trophy, like all of these things. But it's like that experience and that knowledge is huge. And I just think if I would have been talking about that situation, I would have not gone that direction. That's why I said right away, Jason, I'm going to go to you on this one because I just didn't have much on it. And I think that's so critical, especially for these young quarterbacks, because they're going to need people who understand, whether it's you being there with Tony Romo and Dak Prescott, whether it's Cliff Kingsbury's time in Arizona as a head coach now, being an offensive coordinator with Jayden Daniels, or just Dan Quinn's time when he was in Atlanta and figuring that out. And I just think that experience can help these young quarterbacks a lot.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.